Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pokemon review series. In this episode, we're coming over. We're covering the first that I'm covering of like the old gold power plant Pokemon. Glad I waited a little bit on some of these videos because otherwise I would have had to kind of jump back in the Pokedex, and I probably will have to do that eventually. Actually, I know I will have to do that pretty soon with Sneasel coming up. um, but he's not out yet, so we're going to keep talking on with where we're going through the Pokedex, and that is on Aggron. Now, Aggron, Steel type, one of our 3 Steel lines in the entire game. We've only got the Steelix, the Aggron, and the Magnezone, and Aggron is our ingredient specialist of the 3. So, Aggron is interesting, it's got the Slumbering type, as is typical for Steel types. It's got the ingredient specialty, and this guy was given the pseudo treatment, as I like to call it. It's not only applied to pseudos. In fact, nowadays I think it actually applies to more non-pseudo legendary Pokemon than it applies to pseudos themselves. But it was given the pseudo treatment, and that is being an ingredient specialist with charge energy, yes, a stupidly high ingredient rate, even no matter what its speed is, making it the best at producing the particular ingredient that it makes at base. The Pokemon with this treatment are absolutely cracked. Most notably, the 3 that we kind of look at when we think about this sort of treatment is Skeledirge for apples, and then the actual pseudos that I was talking about, Tyranitar and with Ginger, and Dragonite with the herbs. So, yeah, the Aggron has it for sausage. Now, where it's very interesting here is if we look at the sausage, bean sausage. Before, it was always Charizard was the best, but actually, as you can see now, Aggron beats it out. That is a relatively new development. Beware is actually pretty close behind them as well, but that's very interesting comparison to be making when Beware has a different base ingredient. In fact, if that Beware had sausage as its base ingredient, it would beat out both these guys. But for now, Aggron is the best at making sausage. And that is primarily due to the massive 28.5% ingredient rate. Another key thing to note about this pseudo treatment is that for their pseudo designated ingredient, a lot of this is not real terminology. It's just what I'm using to classify it to you guys. They have a 2-5-7 spread, so 2 bean sausage at 1, 5 at 30, 7 at 60. And the Aggron was given that for the sausage. And yeah, 28.5%. That is a ridiculously high ingredient rate. I think it's in the top. I think that's in the top 5 for fully evolved Pokemon. Let's see. Is it? Am I right in that guess? Fact checking it's the second highest for fully evolved Pokemon. After Slacking, so it's the highest for any ingredient specialist that's fully evolved, which is just insane. Now, a part of that is dragged down by the fact that it's got a 50-minute frequency. 50 minutes is pretty slow, but that's not that bad for an ingredient specialist with this high of an ingredient rate, and with the Steel Berry. For comparison's sake, Steelix, who is its competitor, the other primary Steel specialist in the game, or Steel Berry specialist, Magnezone's got 51, so it's actually slower. And then Steelix is exactly the same speed, as we can see here, 50 minutes. So Steelix is the same speed, that's the speed for Steel specialists or Steel Berry Pokemon. And a big part of that is Steel Berry is very powerful. It's the second strongest berry in the game, as far as raw value goes. So I think they intentionally made the Steel type Pokemon on the slower side of things. I don't expect to really see a fast Steel Berry Pokemon or Steel type Pokemon in this game for a very long time if they ever do introduce it, and they'd have to be very careful around balancing it. If they made that thing a berry specialist, that'd be insane, but that's speculation outside the concepts of this video. We're talking about the Aggron today. Now, it's got Charge Energy S, which is a very powerful main skill on ingredient specialists only, and this is an ingredient specialist, so it serves well. With a 5.2% skill trigger rate, it's going to be proccing quite a bit. as is the case with Charge Energy S on any Pokemon, really. It's going to keep itself topped off, especially if run alongside an Energy for Everyone healer. If you have a mono Bean Sausage Aggron, you can just swap this guy in and out as much as you wish to make sure you just have all the Bean Sausage you desire for whatever meal you're making with ease. So, he's got 18 inventory, which is sizable for a 3-stage Pokemon. That can go up to 28 after evolution, and then that's like 34 after ribbons, because I believe it's plus 6 for the ribbons. And yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at for Aggron's base stats. Now, the interesting thing for ingredient specialists is always discussing what their ingredient list holds. Now, as we discussed, Aggron is the best for Bean Sausage, hands down. If you already have a Charizard before getting to the old gold power plant, that is one consideration with him. If you got one that's mono Bean Sausage, then stick with the Charizard. Don't be hunting one to reinvest, because the Aggron, yes, it's better, but not that much better, and you can catch Charmander right away on Greengrass Island. You can catch Aaron on Old Gold Power Plant, which is likely, if you're a brand new player starting today, likely at least a year away. A year into the future before you can even encounter this guy. So it's not worth waiting that long for a Bean Sausage specialist, especially when Charizard's right there. But this guy, he's got other options. So what do the other options have? Especially if you have the mono Bean Sausage Charizard and you're like, well, what else can I do with the Aggron? And I think it's got a very interesting potential that a lot of people don't really recognize, and that is this Defiant Coffee Dressed Salad. I think that with 28 Bean Sausage and 28 Coffee, if you have an AAC Aggron, or AAB, sorry, not C, AAB Aggron, that can get pretty close to a 50-50 split. Not quite there on the Bean Sausage and Coffee, and can get close to making this relatively consistently, that if you just do a little bit of extra stockpiling or have a little bit of assistance to it through one of your other Pokemon on the team, then you can likely actually make this meal pretty consistently with the Aggron providing the Bean Sausage and the Coffee. Maybe you'll get a little bit of Bean Sausage and oil from like a wall rain or something that makes them on the side. Maybe you'll get a little more coffee from, well, there isn't coffee on very many Pokemon right now, so that one's a little bit more limited, but yeah. And it's one of the only Pokemon that you can really do that with. Interestingly enough, also the C option, if you have AAC, this Hidden Power Perk Up Stew, or no, this would be ABC. This Hidden Power Perk Up Stew is an interesting option. Unfortunately, given that the A ingredient is bean sausage, you're not going to really be using that when making this meal. But given that it takes more of the soybeans than it does the coffee beans, and the coffee beans the middle option and the soybeans are the late game option, that balances out pretty nicely. Especially when, like I said, aided by another Pokemon on the team. If you have, let's say, an AAC Shinx as well to make into a Luxray, you can make this pretty consistently as well. Especially with something for mushrooms on the side there. And these are some of the top meals in the entire game that we're looking at and considering. So, just lots of interesting things. Ninja Curry is also notable, having sausage and soybeans. An AAC or an ABC is going to be able to produce plenty of sausage for this. And you may just have coffee as a side product. I don't know how much soybeans it's going to make comparatively. However, I'm suggesting it for Perk Up Stew. Then you could also make it for Ninja Curry. You may need to aid it for either of these meals because, once again, you're dealing with split production. But it's interesting to consider all the options here. The Aggron still has some value if you don't need it for the mono build. And I think a lot of players ignore that because they think the mono build is the way. Mono is interesting, but I don't think it's always the only option out there. So, if you want to hunt the Aggron, it's only at the old gold power plant. That's where you gotta go. That's what I would consider to be my Pokemon teams. Like, they must feel like they live there at this point. And it probably will continue to be that way for a while. But Aggron, quite the Pokemon, so yeah. I hope you learned something. If you have and you've enjoyed in some capacity, then please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye now.